Good evening and welcome to the third meeting of fiscal year 2025 for the Milton Planning Board. At this time, I'd like to now call the meeting to order and begin with our administrative items. The first item is the approval of minutes. And Cheryl, thank you.
We should introduce us.
Oh, we should introduce ourselves first. Yeah, let's introduce the board and then we can introduce staff. So, Jim?
Jim Davis, member.
Meg Yulfield, member.
Sean Fahey, member.
Cheryl?
Cheryl Tagayas, secretary.
And Meredith Hall serving as chair. And tonight we are fortunate enough to have with us our assistant town administrator. Nick, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, Nick Congress, assistant town administrator. It's a pleasure to be here tonight.
Great, thank you for joining us. For the approval of minutes, we actually have 5 sets of minutes. I have not had a chance to go through them all. I know some members have. Cheryl, thank you for getting these in this afternoon. But if it's okay, I would like to look them through. So if we could defer them, we are not going to be meeting again in August, but our next meeting date scheduled is September 11th, unless there's a need for us to meet sooner. How does the members feel about moving those minutes to September 11th?
Yeah, that's fine.
Fine with me.
Is that okay? All right. A motion to move the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? We'll do roll call. Jim?
Aye.
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 Sean?
Aye.
And Cheryl?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Okay, perfect. So, as we've just mentioned, next meeting dates we have scheduled will be September 11th, and then we will have the 25th will be the second meeting of September.
9:25 is the second.
9:25.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes. And with that, do you have any update, Nick, for us? Anything from staff updates from Nick or anyone else?
So the only staff update, we are in process with interviews and looking to move forward with the planning director candidate. From there, we would also be sooner after posting assistant director role to fill as well, but we of course would like to have the leader of the office in place before we get into reviewing the candidates for that as well. And beyond that, I am here to support, as is Nick, any way needed, both the committee and any questions that may come in from the community.
Terrific. Great, thank you very much. So now we can open it up for citizens speak. There's no one here in the audience, so I don't know if there's any hands up on Zoom. Anyone who would like to speak, you will have an opportunity if you would like to speak on the articles for fall town meetings and upcoming town meetings. Tonight specifically, we'll be discussing the signs and traffic mitigation.
We do not have any hands raised online. I don't know if there is anyone else in the room to his imagined.
Okay, great. Nope. Okay, thank you. So now we can move into the discussions of articles for fall and spring town meetings and open it up. Just to update the committee, I did have a chance to speak with John Zikowitz. John is the chair of the sign review committee. He's been in that position since the sign review committee was begun, and he agreed with a lot of the things that we had amended, and we can go through those tonight. And then he just had a few sort of overreaching, just an email, and I'll just share that with you. Some initial comments. The sign review committee currently meets once a month. If a sign application gets filed right after our meeting, there will not be another meeting within 14 days. Can this be changed to 30 days? We did meet in the past every 2 weeks, but there were never enough sign applications that required a meeting this often. Internally lit illuminated signs, yes, we typically do not allow them, but we have allowed signs that are internally lit only through the letters /logo with the rest of the sign opaque. Some signs can only be lit this way. For example, gas station freestanding signs, they cannot be lit from the ground. And sometimes ground signs are better lit in this method than putting an external ground mounted spot on the sign. Externally illuminated signs, he mentioned directed downward or upward if they're ground mounted signs. Sometimes they do allow that solely at the sign. All lit signs, he wanted us to include that should have dimming capabilities to adjust after the installation. And then signs painted on windows should still be reviewed by the sign review committee. The entire storefront should work as a whole. And we have had many situations where applicants have gotten carried away with the amount of information that they want to put onto the windows. And then just the last thing he mentioned was for process. Following the receipt of and this is part of what we have in here that he wanted to add to, following the receipt by the building commissioner of a complete application, the building commissioner should review and approve that proposed sign meets the dimensional and square footage criteria of the total sign area. So he wants to catch that at the building commissioner's point of review. This information should be included with the application to the sign review committee with review. And those were his comments. And then there were a few little things that we added along the way. But so how would everyone like to walk through? I know we sort of went through like page by page on the changes. Nick, if it would be possible, would you be able to pull the sign article up? And it's been reformatted by Nick, which is helpful.
And I see Cheryl's hand is up, but
Sure,
before
yeah.
we get too deep into the particulars, I have an overarching concern with
Yep.
the whole bylaw. So I don't know what Cheryl wanted to speak about.
Maggie, thanks, Meredith.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you may have said this, but did those comments come from John as the chair, or do you know if the committee was provided with a copy and whether they spoke about it at one of their meetings?
This was from the chair under review. John has been on the committee since the very beginning, so has a sort of an understanding of the context. But I think we certainly should provide a copy with we've also provided a copy with the new building commissioner. So I think we should have get comments, and we will have to hold a public hearing, but get comments from the entire committee. And
I'm also wondering whether, we've spoken about this before, but whether the Chamber of Commerce should receive a copy, and the businesses have an opportunity to review it as well.
certainly. Yeah, I think we should. If we can finalize a draft, we can share it with yes, especially for a public hearing. But we could send it to definitely. I think we know that Kathleen has taken a look at it. I've spoken to Katie Conlon about it, who has been involved with the different steps and the different changes as it was implemented and updated. So, yeah, I think that's a great idea.
So, lastly, we went through the bylaw in detail, kind of line by line before. I think it would be helpful to get the comments that were provided by the chair of the sign committee incorporated into the document. And, you just read them, but we have not received a copy of those comments. So I think it's going to be hard for us to do that on the fly tonight.
I have sort of prepared just the areas that, based on what John's feedback, I was giving you his overall email, but we went through line by line, and we can touch on those pretty quickly.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
And add those, yeah. So Maggie, yeah, go ahead.
So I spent a little bit of time trying to walk through the whole process. So here I am, if I'm an applicant, I went on the Town of Milton's website, I put in the search bar signs, and all sort of random information came up, and it was a little bit confusing to me to follow. And so, I found the 2003 where the sign, was it 2003? The sign review committee was established. And they were primarily established to review any signs that did not comply with our bylaw. So if I'm a business and I am opening a business, it would be nice to see online all the rules that I have to follow. And just like if you were building an accessory building like a shed, if you met all the setbacks and met all the requirements, you then did not have to go through the whole process. You were just able to put up a shed. So if your setback was 30 feet or 15 feet and you met the setbacks, do not exceed certain heights. So my problem with this is every single application has to go through the sign review committee. And the sign review committee is an appointed committee. It's not an elected committee. So like as a business, I went online to see what the process was. And I was expecting to see your sign cannot exceed a certain percentage of your storefront, and it can't be lit, or it could be lit between these hours. And I didn't really find all of that online. And I would think that if we're trying to be pro-business in town, we wouldn't want to put additional hurdles for businesses. And if we meet all the requirements of whatever the conditions are that we as a town want to establish, you shouldn't have to go to the sign review committee. You should just be able to fill out an application, submit it to the building inspector. He checks off that you met all the requirements, just like you do with a building permit if you wanted to build a shed. And then the building inspector issues a building permit. So how come the sign process is different than that? And how come it changed? And how come we're giving a non-elected body, discretion to either appoint or approve a sign application or not approve it?
So this is the select board making that decision to make that change, that there is that committee. I think there were issues and, historically going back, just trying to be sort of like our site plan review in giving guidance. And we include, if you remember, in our design guidelines for both the Lower Mills and East Milton, we had signage as part of that, trying to give guidance to that. I've sat in on a lot of the sign review committee. They're very good about listening to the businesses, but they're also good about listening to the neighbors. Some things when it comes before us with site plan review, the planning board does have a chance to give our input on it, such as the memory care when we were talking about the signage that's in a residential area on Highland Street. So I think they take into the consideration where it's located and the site, but giving guidance to give something that does have certain restrictions and a certain process. So in here it gives the applicant, because right now all signs do go through the sign review committee, but it starts with the building inspector. But the building inspector, as you know, is very busy. So he then goes through a checklist of certain the application requirements, just as, again, a developer would do that, through the planning department. But it's sort of a vetting of where the signs are, going to be placed, where they're going to be, the size of the signs. And then these are technical, more technical experts. John Zikowitz, who's an architect. Cheryl, you probably have and I'd love for you to weigh in on your experience, but people who understand lumens, understand the lighting, understand how it's going to be. If you look at some of the historic buildings, most have gooseneck lighting in East Milton Square, for example. Residents really don't like the Santander sign and some of the really large, internally lit signs. So I hear people complaining about them. And so this is a way which will help the sign review committee and the permitting process to say, this is what's prohibited. These are exempt, and there's a lot of signs things that are exempt that you don't have to go through. So there's a whole category that you don't have to go through them. There's just a certain category that you also do.
Yeah, so I brought up the sign review committee charge. Yeah, and it was on 6/16/03. And it said the sign review committee shall review each application for a sign permit regarding signs for which the building commissioner determines that the subject sign does not comply with the Milton zoning bylaw requirement for signs. So was this charge changed?
I don't know. I think the bylaw, certain things have been updated in the handbook. I know that.
So this
So
came right
the
off
history-
the sign review
Yeah.
committee webpage?
I don't know when that was updated, the charge. That could be a question for John Zikowitz, who can also come to our public hearing and help to shed light. But Cheryl, you've been on this committee also on the planning board. So
Yeah, I'll just add that part of the impetus for this was to make it more predictable process. And similar to the site plan approval process where there had been less teeth, if you will, less to point to support a decision. So this provides more teeth for the sign review committee. And I agree. Like if I think about, Maggie, you're comparing building permits to the sign permits, but the sign permits are different in that, the businesses are, for the most part in Milton, in close proximity to residential properties. And there is a lot of interest in what gets approved, particularly I'm thinking like in East Milton near the gas station, but in other places as well. And so, having an opportunity for residents to provide some input through this process, I think is welcomed. And this would take care of some of the problems I understand that existed when signs were denied and then appealed. And when town council has said that there's discrepancies between the handbook and the zoning doesn't provide us enough to support this decision on appeal. So this would provide that. So I think, in terms of the what the business owner expectations are, certainly it should be clear on the website, but I think most businesses would probably contact the building department to see, to clarify what the process is. So I think this is an improvement in process and an improvement in expectations for not only applicants, but for residents.
Yeah, and I totally understand when you're looking at lighted signs or lit signs. So I think that is the biggest problem. But what if a business doesn't want a lit sign? You
don't have to. You don't have to have a lit
You
sign.
don't have to, but you still have to then go through this whole process. When, if you're a business in East Milton Square, just on Adams Street, like Mr. Chan's, and if he, it's he just has, I think, gooseneck lighting, but his sign is just a simple sign. If he wants to change that sign, then he has to come through this whole entire process.
You know, I hear your question, and I think there might be an opportunity if we're gonna have a representative of the sign committee meet with us. Maybe a question for them could be: are there signs that they would feel could just require the approval of the building inspector? And there probably are plenty of signs that the building inspector would feel, certainly signs that are not illuminated. An illuminated sign probably should go, you're right, always, but a non-illuminated sign that meets the parameters of the bylaw, the building inspector should have, you know, within his permitting authority, the ability to permit. I've permitted signs for a long time in my career in many, many, many towns. And although I don't work as much as a project manager any longer, the permitting authority is generally the building inspector in most of the towns that have permitted signs in. And I don't remember too many times that I had a sign, you know, review committee that that towns had. I understand the reason for it, but there's probably signs that could be approved by the building inspector that don't require the process.
And I think,
And I'm sorry, I interrupted you. And I think throughout our entire town, if we cannot put somebody through a process unnecessarily, we should, no matter what it is. We're talking about signs right now, but I feel that way about just about everything.
Yeah.
So if there's an opportunity to have a category of signs that the building inspector could permit, you know, I think we should look to see if we can do that.
Yeah, like if there's just a checklist. So when I went on the search bar and typed in signs, under sign applications and instructions, I'm like, oh, this is going to lead me to the process. But actually what the document is rules and regulations for nonprofit event signage banner display and the application for that. So in the search bar, the title of the document doesn't actually match the document.
which is a different problem than what we're talking about.
Right.
Which is something that the codification is going to help us with.
Yeah.
Getting that, those will be easy to locate and do search bars. And I've been talking to Nick a little bit about that, in how, like, because part of this will be definitions. The definitions will go with a general bylaw, with all the general definitions. So he wants to check with town council is how does it go within the bylaw, or does it go in a separate location? So that we do need to clarify. But one thing. So what I'm thinking is, if we move through this, we have signs that are exempt. Maybe we find language through the building commissioner and John Zikowitz on where we could, what signs would be exempt and that would not have to go through that process, to your point. And there may be they might say, okay, this kind of sign doesn't, but they might say that's complicated to not have that, to have a separate process. But I think if we can find a way to put it into the exempt, I would support doing that.
Yeah.
So
that it's just a complicated process. And if we are going through the process of updating something, our goal should be to make things less complicated. Yeah. And I do think we should take again, to your point, some things show up on the website that shouldn't be there. For instance, the proposed sign bylaw draft 1 last updated in 2015. So that really shouldn't be on our website either.
no, that's from the old copy. It's been reformatted by Nick.
So it just is, again, that goes to the recodification. And I did, I was talking to the building inspector today about another matter, and I asked if they if either Walter or Michael, the new building inspector, had an opportunity to weigh in, and they haven't had an opportunity yet. And So they would like an opportunity
No,
to weigh
definitely,
in
yeah.
because they are the ones who are dealing.
I think Nick has sent the new building commissioner a draft, so he has received it. I think he's really busy right now, so I
Yes,
don't know
yeah.
if he's had a chance to look at it. But
Yeah.
we certainly do want for his input to look it over, most definitely. And the other thing that John said, they used to meet every 2 weeks, but they don't have enough. They don't have enough people coming in. They only meet monthly because they really, if you think about it, we have very small business districts in Milton. We're mostly a bedroom community. So we have limited, so they really don't have, and they sometimes, don't even meet if they don't have anything. So it's not like they have so many things that they're having to look at. So there really aren't that many businesses redoing signs.
And also, if a business is going through the special permit or site plan approval process with the planning board, I'm not sure why we're making them go through another process with the sign review committee. Couldn't they, if they're going through the process with us, can't the planning board weigh in on the sign?
I think the only reason for that is because we don't know the technical, the lumens, the type of lighting. Cheryl's very good about identifying that, but this is it would be more of a dimensional. They're more architects and graphic art, they specialize in understanding the technical side of it, where I think we get a general sense of the size, aesthetic, but not anything on detail, like in detail. But I think with our approval, they come and they can go to the sign review committee and say this is supported by the planning board, and likely they're going to endorse that plan and not make any. But they'll want to ask certain specifications. And Cheryl, again, you feel free to jump in. And John could give examples of things that they like to ask for.
Yeah, and
that are technical.
I think also with and maybe I'm getting off track a little bit, that the town is also looking at a new lighting bylaw. So I don't know how the residential lighting and the business lighting kind of match up. Shouldn't the lighting bylaw kind of encompass both? So we only have one lighting bylaw, one for businesses and then one for residential.
These are just signs. It's only signs.
Business signs.
It's only signs.
Yeah.
So
business.
yeah. The other thing I just was thinking about, which John mentioned, is that just from a technical review standpoint, they like to have the exact dimensions and specifications. So when Sean's building a building or Jim's doing a project, you have to have exact, and the building department needs exact measurements from a sign company, whoever's producing the sign, because that's what the building inspector has to go by, the exact sign. So you have to have exact drawings and exact specifications. And we do get that sometimes, but sometimes we don't get it to that level. So that's what the sign review committee, they make sure that whatever they're approving can be handed to the building commission, the building inspector. And that's what's going to be what actually is built. Because rather than having something that comes out, oh, this is 2 feet larger than what we expected, we're not the overseers of that. The building inspector is. So he needs exact specific drawings for those lights.
But with a special permit, the building inspector is overseeing the special permit and all the conditions and mitigation efforts of that special permit.
But it might not need a special permit. It might just need the review of,
for the sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm saying from our process,
right.
If a business was going through a special permit process or a site plan review process, within the application to the planning board, a business has to put in their signs, and the dimensions are on the signs. And so then the planning board approves the signs within the site plan approval. And then when the building inspector goes to make sure that all the conditions are met, he can measure the signs to make sure that it
I think I think we'd have a challenge because most applicants at the time they're before the planning board don't have definitive designed signs. You know, we've seen that a number of times, you know, where they have a rough idea of what they'll do for signage, but we're ready to approve their project and they're not really far enough along down the line with a sign design that would fall, you know, that would meet that we could even measure against our bylaw. You know, it just might be too early in the process. And that's not unusual for a lot of businesses. You know, while they're trying to secure approval for the project, they're not really focused on their signage. They're focused on trying to get the approval for the project, and they realize that signage will be later. So it might be hard to even be in a position to have the level of detail that we would need to, you know, measure someone who's before the planning
Cheryl
board
has
for a
her
sign approval.
hand up. Yeah. Cheryl, did you?
I agree with Sean on the timing of how the signs are developed generally would come later. And oftentimes the sign review committee, I think, receives a shop drawing, which is a technical drawing that's provided by the sign maker. I would like to say, you know, you can kind of liken it to a special level of review or a special expertise and their level of reviews. You can think of like stormwater is special, traffic is special, and to some extent like the utilities that the engineering department looks at. So I do think that, you know, there's a level of review of the composition of the sign, the architecture of the building, and the guidelines. And the guidelines, I don't think we're trying to remove guidelines and remove a sign review committee. We're trying to clean up the process and make it better. But, you know, guidelines are something that can be interpreted. And a building inspector is really not the kind of official that does that kind of, you know, interpretation. They're the ones who look at code and say it meets it or doesn't meet it. They're not ones who says, well, this is appropriate for this kind of architecture and this is not appropriate for this kind of architecture. And so it's where those guidelines and the zoning work together. It can meet the zoning, but it might not meet the guidelines. And I don't think we're proposing to remove the guidelines. And I certainly don't think that we started this process talking about removing the sign review committee either. So I think what we're talking about is zoning that cleans up and clears up some more expectations and aligns the guidelines with the zoning. I don't think there would be an expectation to completely flip the process or to eliminate the process.
Yeah, no, and I'm not suggesting we get rid of the sign review committee. I'm just suggesting it goes back to what town meeting approved back in 2003. And if that was changed, then I didn't find it. So I'm kind of wondering, and I got it on their website. So I'm just trying to understand when it changed from when it was established.
So Maggie, in practice, it could be the building commissioner not being comfortable making an opinion about whether it meets the design guidelines or not. And so it might be that the building commissioner has, in practice in the past, passed them on for review. And that just could be how it happened to change.
And I understand having an architect on the design review committee because I understand the technical part of it. But not all the members are architects, and some of them are business owners. And from a business owner perspective, to be honest with you, I wouldn't want another business owner telling me as a business owner, oh, your logo or your font is not in keeping with whatever. So, I think it's more discretionary sometimes with the sign review committee.
Well, the way I understand that group, it's the director of planning and community development. It is a person who has a background either as an architect or a planner, and then there are 3 other representatives, and they can be they have to be Milton residents or Milton business owners. A Milton business owner probably would recognize the concerns of a business and maybe the concerns a business has. So there'll always be someone who has experience, hopefully, Cheryl type experience. There'll always be the director of planning and community development, and then 3 residents, one of which could be a business owner, or maybe multiple could be business owners. Maybe it would be good, and this is up to the select board, maybe it'd be good that they always make sure that they have one business owner of the 3, of the 3 other members. Would you feel comfortable? Would you rather see a business owner as, and I'm not even sure we could do that because I think that's ship has sailed.
Yeah.
But would you feel more comfortable if a business owner was part of the?
Yeah, so I struggle with, having signs being judged by other business owners.
Yeah.
And I understand if you meet the dimensional requirements and the lighting requirements, there might be a business whose font I personally might not like, but if that's their business, then who am I to tell them to change their font or their colors?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just am trying to make the process a little bit easier for businesses in town, and it just wasn't easy for me navigating the process, and I've been through the process.
Yeah.
And it just seems overly cumbersome.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think like other things that we talk about here on the planning board, some of the experiences you've had, none of us have had. And it's helpful to understand it because we should be considerate of how it feels to anybody that goes through the process, you or anybody else. But, just to maybe move our conversation, our meeting along, we probably should see if we could have with us some night John.
Yes. Yeah.
And,
Definitely. We could do that.
I had one comment. I think,
especially during the public hearing, it might be helpful for him to answer questions.
Yeah. One comment. Do you want to continue?
No, no.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
But I don't think, and this might be a discussion with Nick Milano, and maybe Nick Connors can take it to him. I don't think the bylaw should make any reference to insurance requirements, and we do. We talk about what coverages we should have. I don't think that's our business. My feeling is if something goes wrong on a sign install and there isn't enough coverage there for the event that takes place, the last thing we want is Milton to be responsible. The insurance coverages really should be between whoever is the sign company and whomever, whoever the applicant is in Milton that's trying to buy a sign or have a sign installed. I just am a little uncomfortable that we have
that's
anything
something
in our
we would
bylaw.
want town council to review. Yeah.
Whomever, but
yeah.
it's not. Insurances are constantly changing, and coverage and limits. There's no reference to workers' compensation in there. It can be a very dangerous area to make to define parameters of insurance requirements. I just think we should stay away from it.
Yeah, Nick, maybe you can just make a note to that because we are in the process of interviewing town council. So we've thought, we might just wait till we know who we should be presenting this to review.
Of course. Yeah.
But I think that's just something that we could start thinking about, Nick, with
Yep.
with
And
Nick
that was
Milano.
something that Nick Milano had also flagged, that we're in the final stages of the appointment of town council. And so this will be at or near the top of the list of things that we would like to get input on in pretty short order.
Okay.
So thanks for flagging that.
Yeah, my comment, no matter who the town council is, my comment would be that in our bylaws, we should not be dictating insurance requirements. It's too risky.
I already took the note. I'll make sure I report back to Nick as well. And
Good.
when we transmit to town council.
Thanks.
Perfect.
One other thing I noticed,
Yeah.
and I don't know if I'm
Yeah.
reading this differently, but the way I read it, and I didn't note where I read it, you often see people that might have a yard sale and they post something on a utility pole.
Mm-hmm.
The way I read this, that's not allowed any longer.
Correct.
They're not supposed to do it. They're not supposed to post things on utility poles right now.
Maybe they never were, but it's a practice.
But it's starting to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how you would ever police that. You know, it goes up on a Friday for a yard sale that's on Saturday, and you know, it's just a comment. I'm not saying we should get rid of it. I'm just saying that, you know, you see that everywhere, all kinds of towns. You know, and maybe what we should say is if any sign is posted like that for a very short term, for 24 hours or 48 hours, the person that posted is responsible to remove it. You know, really what's problematic is not that it goes up, I don't think, it's that it stays there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
but
that's under, I think, our temporary signs. I think there's a time limit
yeah.
that you have to take it down within
Yeah,
24
I think it
hours.
is in there. Yeah.
When-
Under
After
temporary
the
signs.
event. However, you are right that I don't think that we should prohibit a resident from posting a yard sale sign, even if it's on a utility pole or on wherever.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm thinking more of like a lost dog or a lost cat.
So true, Jim. I
Right.
was just thinking about that.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll see a
It'd be
lost
horrible
cat
to
sign
lose
up
your
there.
cat, put up a sign,
Yeah.
and then get fined.
Yeah. You know, it's
But
again.
there's car detailing, you know,
Right.
it starts to become
Yeah.
like, but I totally agree. So I think in our temporary signs, you have to take it down within a certain amount of
Yeah.
time. So let's look at that when we get to that temporary signs.
I didn't know other comments.
So maybe we just start with the intent and purpose section, and we'll just go through it, and people can just add in as we go through it. So that, are you able to share the screen or the document?
So Meredith, just
Yep.
to be clear, this is different than what was in the folder that Nick shared with us? What we're going to be looking at now, or is this the same?
No, it
that
should be
was
the
in
same.
folder? Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
Yep, it should be the same. And then I didn't make any track changes, any edits yet. So
So,
Okay.
yes, it is the one that was shared, and I will track changes that are suggested tonight so that you all can take a look at the sort of global document when you're done with any discussion.
Thank you.
But all the changes that we made last week are
in there. Yes.
So, okay.
Yep. It's just only the ones that John Zikowitz
Okay.
had a few suggestions. So intent, the powers, applicability, existing signs.
Wait, under intent and purpose, the third bullet. What does that mean? So if you read above that, it says, it is further recognized that because of their potential detrimental impact to the visual and perceptual environment, signs.
Under I, are you under I here?
Oh, yeah, 1A, intent.
Yep.
So, and then it has 3 bullets.
Yeah, 1A, 1, and then 3 bullets below it.
I see more bullets than that.
Yeah, I see more
Oh,
bullets.
sorry, it's the third bullet. Sorry, what's on
Okay.
my,
So the
Right.
third bullet, provide
for easy,
Easy recognition.
recognition
and legibility.
of all
Nick,
permitted signs.
sorry, excuse me, Meredith, can Nick enlarge the
Yeah.
document? I'm on my laptop and it's small.
That
Thank
would be
you.
great.
So what is that supposed to mean?
Provide for easy recognition
Yeah.
and legibility, that you can read it.
So easy recognition. It is further recognized that because of their potential detrimental impact to the visual and perceptual environment, signs must be regulated in order to provide for easy recognition. And legibility of all permitted signs and other uses in the immediate vicinity.
I think that might go to what John was saying about how he wants to regulate the window signs because homeowners were going wild and putting too much in. Maybe this is a way to keep the signs simple so you can read them without getting lost in 8,000 messages.
Okay, so the provide for easy recognition is like the message.
Yeah. I think that's what that means.
Okay. Okay.
And then we corrected that last duplicate
Yeah.
to be just a bullet. Okay, so, and I think we didn't have anything else down through existing signs, number 4. But under 4A, I talked to John, on number 4, Roman numeral 4,
Oh, yeah.
because it's existing signs, I don't think we need to say protected. I think we can just say non-conforming. And I couldn't remember if we changed that. John thought it was good just to take out protected signs because they're already existing signs that complied before this bylaw. So it's just the type of sign.
I remember talking about that. At
We
the
did,
last meeting.
yeah.
I thought we took that out.
It just seemed redundant. So could we take out the word protected there? Yeah.
And just to go up to number 2, should it say exempt and prohibited signs are specified in subsection 8? So if you go to subsection 8, it says exempt signs and prohibited. A is exempt signs and B is prohibited signs.
Hold on, let me just check. I thought 8 was just prohibited, but I'm sorry,
It's both.
both.
I think he's right.
So yes, we could, prohibited signs as specified in section 8B, sorry. Yeah, it would be section 8B. We just would need to add B to that. Prohibited signs as specified in section 8. And then can we add B onto that, lowercase b?
So we're not adding exempt because section 8 talks about exempt signs.
Well, it's saying prohibited signs. So we have conforming signs.
It's under existing signs. So
Under existing, right. So it almost could be exempt, could be almost another separate.
I mean,
Conforming signs which
you would
comply.
say exempt signs as specified in subsection 8A.
Well, wouldn't exempt be moot because they are exempted from this piece of regulation? Right? I mean, prohibited are
Yeah.
not allowed. Exempt
Right.
is like they don't really, this doesn't apply to them because they're exempt. So would we have to
Existing signs is
mention that?
defined, selected, and are classified into one of. I think we could just add a number 5 and put exempt signs as just a different type of category.
Okay.
Would that make sense? So add a Roman numeral 5 and just put exempt signs? Does that sound okay,
Yeah,
Cheryl? So we're recognizing, you're right, there's a category of exempt signs.
Because I was reading that.
And then we should add,
And
but
it-
prohibited should as specified in subsection. The exempt signs, and we could say as specified
Or why not just
in
do,
subsection.
since they're both in subsection 8, why not just say exempt and prohibited signs? That doesn't,
Because they're a different type of sign. I would think, I would say exempt signs as specified in subsection 8A.
8A. Okay, yep.
And then just change the word 4 to 5. In A existing
Yes.
signs,
We add, yeah.
add the word 5 instead.
All right, does that sound good?
So I'm rereading 3 and 4 again.
Yeah.
And all of these categories are pre-existing, right? Because this is all under existing signs. So when we struck the word protected, it seems like, what's the difference now between 3 and 4?
One complies and one does
Yeah.
not comply,
They both say non-conforming, though.
which do not comply with one or more provisions of this bylaw, which fully complied with this bylaw. I think it's a timing thing.
Okay.
That's the way I interpreted it. Okay. And if we want to tweak this, we can. My goal is to get a draft over to the warrant committee, but that does not mean that tweaks can't be made to this. Especially after town council reviews it and the building commissioner.
And the sign review.
And the sign
committee.
review committee,
I think,
yeah.
they'll be vetted.
And our residents in our public hearing.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
So under C, John's suggestion was, because we don't want removal of just signs in general, but he said removal of non-approved signs. Because he said there are some signs in town that were not approved. But he wanted to allow for the process to be corrected. And he also, he wanted to change the second sentence where it says 14 days notice. He wanted to change that to 21 days notice.
Those make sense, those two changes.
So it would be removal of non-approved signs as the heading, for 21 days notice in writing. And then at the end of the last sentence, he wanted to add these words, Nick, applicant shall have the opportunity to submit an application for sign review. So if they do that within that time period, he wants to allow the applicant to have that opportunity. So if they already have a sign up that would be something that would be approved, he didn't want them to go to the cost of having to take the sign down. But if they submit that application, they will have that opportunity to do so and just have that sign approved.
That's great. That's terrific.
And should it be C, removal of signs, or should be removal of non-approved signs as the
Yes.
title?
Yes. Sorry, that's what did you get that, Nick? C is removal of non-approved signs. Instead of just saying non-of signs, yeah. Okay, 5 sign permits. This, John was good with all number.
Wait, so hold
5?
on.
Yeah.
Under D, any sign which shall have been abandoned or which shall not have been repaired or properly maintained within 60 days after notice must be brought into compliance. So if a business got notice that their sign is in disrepair, you're saying that they have 60 days to make the repair. Is that correct?
Which has been
60
abandoned.
days to bring their sign into compliance with this bylaw. So if it's a
Yeah.
non-conforming sign, they'll have to change it and get it into compliance.
Not if it's an existing sign. This is, we're under D, so it's,
Yeah.
D.
Existing
D.
sign.
Abandonment of or
Abandonment.
failure to
To
maintain a sign.
So it's if a business has a sign and it's in disrepair, they get a notice from the building commissioner saying your sign's in disrepair. So the business has only 60 days to make the repair. So my question is 60 days enough for a business to go out and repair their sign through a sign company?
John, I asked John about that because I thought that was a question that, is that enough time? And he thought it was.
I think it really depends. I was thinking about this earlier today because 60 days can be a really short period of time, given how long it takes for some sign companies to react.
Yeah.
I think we should consider making that a little bit longer. I mean,
I'm good with that.
Even 90 days, I think would be reasonable. But I think 60, we're going to find is going to be tight.
That's tight.
I mean, 120 days. That gives.
Yeah. I mean, 120 was
4 months.
Probably very, very fair to say that. It could take somebody a week to 2 weeks to get a sign company to even look at their issue.
I agree.
And
That's
then to get a proposal. And
too.
so the 60 is really tight. I think a minimum of 90 and probably 120 is probably very fair. Otherwise, we're going to have, the building commissioner is going to have a really tough time when we burden him with a 60-day mandate, and he's just not going to be able to hold people accountable,
Cheryl, what are your thoughts in your experience?
I agree that 60 days could be difficult depending upon what kind of sign it is. But also having it be brought into compliance with the bylaw. Should there be some kind of provision, as there is on the abandonment, just to apply to have it repaired in kind or as it is? Because there could be, if it's a painted sign, for example, to have to now come up with a new design because they didn't get it painted and it was cited. I guess I'm wondering whether we should give them an opportunity to repair in kind the sign that was already approved.
Mm-hmm.
But if not, then I definitely agree that 90 to 120 days is probably more realistic.
Well, yeah.
It's just hard when you're waiting on somebody else to do something.
Right. Why don't we change that to 120 days? And then that way, because the goal is to have everything to eventually become into conformity. So, but being fair about the amount of time, I think that's good. Sign permits. This, everything he thought was good for this. Following attachments. He did have some comments down on the processing permit issuance. And this is where I had asked, we were talking about the timing on this. So the first line says the town shall process sign permit applications within 30 days of receipt of the complete and accurate application by the building commissioner. 30 days, if that's 30 days, really the whole process, he thinks we should give that 90 days, because if the building commissioner has 30 days to process and the sign review committee maybe needs 60 days, we should allow a total of 90 days. So changing that first 30 to 90, he suggested. And then down where it says no sign permit shall be issued by the building commissioner sooner than 30, he said to change that to 60. Unless allowed, unless the advisory review committee, the sign committee, has been received. If the advisory recommendation of the sign review committee is not received within, again, he said 60 days again. But then he also wanted to add one caveat, comma, after the second 60 days, to say unless there is a continuance by the sign review committee. And he said, because sometimes they need to go back and they need to do a revision for some reason. Sometimes they have to go back and it just takes them a little bit longer. It's sort of like when we have a site plan review and they need to go back, they have a peer review and they have to go back and need to do make some changes. So he said, so it would be 60 days, comma, unless there is a continuance by the sign review committee.
You know, I'd be comfortable with all of those timeframes. It doesn't mean that it's going to take that long, but it means that we're affording, you know, the committee and also the building inspector that if they're overwhelmed, you know, they have a little bit of time. The other reason I don't have an issue with those timeframes is the bylaw is going to exist. Everybody that needs a sign permit can look at the bylaw, they can recognize how long, and they can plan appropriately, right? So it's not going to be a surprise that it's 60 days or 90 days, right? It's going to be there for everybody to understand. Sorry,
Nick, you know what? I meant to put that unless there is a continuance after the very end. And the building commissioner shall act on the sign permit, comma, unless. I forgot there was that. So just moving that line, yeah, to the end. So that just gives them.
So at the beginning of that sentence, it says no sign permit shall be issued by the building commissioner sooner than 30 days.
And he said change that to 60?
Yeah. So
I thought 90.
yeah. So I'm mostly not concerned about that. So I'm concerned about no sign permit shall be issued by the building commissioner. So that is just the building commissioner getting, implementing the approval from the sign review committee, because we know that the building commissioner does not issue sign permits.
Who issues sign permits?
Well, the sign review committee issues the sign.
It goes back.
They give them an advisory.
Yeah.
They give it an advisory.
And then it goes back and
recommendation to the
it goes
building
between, the application goes to the sign review committee, then the sign review committee reviews it and notifies the building commissioner, and then the building commissioner issues the permit.
Issues it, okay.
They give them one of 4 recommendations.
Okay. I guess that's what my hang up was what my previous comments was. We should allow the building commissioner to issue permits directly.
I'm sorry for correcting you. Were right in the 60, not the correct. You said 90. I was wrong. But yeah, building commissioner has the final say, and he can or cannot. You know, he takes the recommendation under advisement, but he doesn't have to listen to it. Is the way I understand this.
Yeah. So so that's the thing. So if it goes to sign review and the sign review committee gives a recommendation, so the building commissioner doesn't have to follow it, right?
Technically, he doesn't, which is okay.
It's sort of the way the process has been. It's sort of a working together of the director of planning who gets, the building commissioner gets the original application, sends that make sure everything's in place, sends it to the director of planning, who attends the meetings and is interacting and working with the sign review committee. They make that determination, and that determination is the basis for the building permit being issued. So I think the building commissioner would not approve something that had been rejected, that either the bylaw didn't agree with, because they would have to agree with the bylaw. The building commissioner wouldn't say, yes, you can have this type of sign if it didn't agree with the bylaw. So it just sort of is the process of how it...
So it's not an advisory. It's really not an advisory committee then.
It really is it's advisory on the final product of what is going to be created, and it's agreed upon. So it really isn't just advisory. But it has to be the advisory, what they're what they're asking them for and approving has to be based on the bylaw. So they can't go off and approve something that's not in the bylaw,
Yeah.
but they do want, it's sort of like they give the blessing and the blessing goes, then they bless.
Yeah, so
say
that goes
this.
back to my point is if we have a bylaw explicitly stated that the building commissioner can refer to, I feel like we're adding an extra step if the sign review committee is just advisory.
But
If
these they specialize in design, and that's the building commissioner does not specialize in design and the aesthetics, and that's the
And I guess my problem with that is you look at the Santander Bank sign, the sign bylaw review committee actually approved it, correct?
because they didn't have the teeth.
Because, okay.
They didn't have the teeth to it to deny it. So that's why they've gotten stuck with that's why we've gotten stuck with, we're trying to fix those problems. Like the size of the extra space storage sign, just different things that we had a very.
Yeah, but I understand size,
It
that
depends
should
on where it's
be-
location. Yeah.
I understand that. Okay.
But, okay. All right. So D, application rejections. Everything was a resubmission. This was all good. Under design review, going down to B, I think we had made this change that it's actually the select board is the one who appoints on an annual basis. Is that change that's in there?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Sorry, I still can't read it. And then under process, this is where John wanted to add this line. Hold on. One second. So it would read, Nick, following the receipt by the building commissioner of a complete application, comma, the building commissioner should review and approve that the proposed sign meets the
Could you
dimension.
just read,
Oh, sorry.
could you read
Yep.
through it fully once and then you can,
Yep.
I'll copy edit it just so I understand and
Okay,
can follow
great.
better. Sorry.
Sure. Under the first line, under I, B, C, I, process. Following the receipt of the building commissioner of a complete application, the building commissioner should review and approve that the proposed sign meets the dimensional and square foot criteria of the total sign area. Capitalizing total sign area. This information should be included with the application to the sign review committee for review.
Can you repeat it one more time for
Yep.
me? I apologize.
All right, no problem. Following the receipt of the building commissioner of a complete application, comma, the building commissioner should review and approve that the proposed sign meets the dimensional and square foot criteria of the total, capitalizing total sign area. This information, period, this information should be included with the application to the sign review committee for review, period.
So generally in the zoning, when we want something, as a mandatory, we don't use the word should, we use the word shall. So I think it's best to put shall here instead of should.
Period. And so
There's two places there that the should be shall. Thanks, Nick.
I can't hear Meredith right now.
I can't hear Meredith either.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I'll just switch my mic. So then so then we would, where that, there was a break, we would then start the new sentence being, the building commissioner will forward the appropriate number of copies of the application. And then the rest of that sentence is
Got it.
as is.
Okay.
All right. And then under number 2, under process, he suggested changing from 14 days to 30 days because that's what's referenced in a different section, that the building commissioner has 30 days to process. So then that means that under 4, that first line where it says 30 days, that should be 90 days. And then the application materials to the director of planning. He agreed with that because that's how it's been working. And then the first words in the next line would be director of planning shall forward such recommendation in writing to the applicant. And
But
the
what
building
happens
commissioner.
if we don't have a director of planning?
Or we could say the planning department.
That's what's in the draft right now.
That's
is
what's in
planning
the draft,
department. Chairman has been removed.
Should we?
Keep
Yeah.
the planning department?
All right, just keep the planning department. Okay, then let's keep that.
Because the
I think it's fine.
frustration I've been hearing from people around town is we haven't had a building inspector and all their applications are like so delayed. So if we, for some reason, continued not to have
The planning
a planning
department, so,
director,
Okay.
it shouldn't hold up an application process.
He was fine with that. He just thought it typically does go to the director of planning, but that's perfectly fine. So then criteria for review, this, where it says that is number 2, the sign guidelines handbook to be updated from time to time. And this he thought by, again, the director of planning in consultation with the planning board and sign review committee. Do we want that to be just planning department? Because it really is to make the change in it would be better for the director of planning to make sort of to work in consultation with the planning board and the sign review committee, because whoever that person is going to make sure the zoning aligns with that handbook.
Remember though, Meredith, that it was Tim who drafted this when he was the assistant planning director. So I think planning department is still appropriate. If the director wants to assign the task to the assistant,
Okay.
why limit him
Yeah,
or
that's
her?
right. To give flexibility with that.
And I agree in consultation with the planning board. Not, so he added that, so that's good.
And-
Yes, and we
And
added that.
also the sign review committee, I thought he added.
To do with both, yeah.
Again, I don't know. I'm
It's just
I'm a
making
little bit
sure-
worried about, a lot of these boards are appointed and they're not elected. And that's just my concern about all boards, not just this one board. I'm not picking on this one board, but all these boards generally are appointed and they're not elected. And a lot of times the average resident doesn't understand that these non-appointed boards are making changes to our bylaws because they don't,
Well, they're not making changes to the bylaws.
or they're making suggestions.
They're not making suggestions to the bylaws.
No.
They're making sure that what is approved are consistent with the bylaws that we, as elected, are drafting.
The one thing I would say about
So
that
that's-
is, when you have a committee that's appointed, you can target particular skill sets, which you can't do with the elected body. You know, there's some discussion I've heard people say, you know, members of the planning board should have expertise in the topics that come before the planning board. And that's not something you can do in an elected body, but it is something you can do in an appointed committee. So it is, I do think that idea that you have to be elected in order to make advisory opinions or recommendations, I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that their committee has worked very well in, offering flexibility and working with and really supporting the business owners in town. I've been very impressed when I've listened to the buildings. They really do listen. It's really what the owners want but just making sure it complies with as best they can given what the bylaws are. So, okay, so. Everything else along here, criteria for review, recommendations. He was good with the appeal and special permits of the changes that we made. He supported it going to the ZBA instead of the select board. I talked to Nick about this today. And Katie Conlon said that this, at one point, it was supposed to go because really the ZBA is the special permitting body to zoning. But at some point, historically, it never happened that it went to the ZBA. But that was previously the intent, that's how it should go. I also talked to Nick and saying, we want the select board to review this. So we want to send a copy to them, just making sure that's, that they support that as well. Okay, so moving down to 7, the appeals to C. Special permit, when a special permit. So this is one thing that he wanted to just separate out, and there is a section that highlights it. But we could add it in here just to make it clear. The signs, special permits may be considered and issued for any request for relief from the requirements of this section. However, special permits may be issued to allow, may not be issued to allow those signs in section 8, and it should actually say 8B. But he wanted to add comma with the exception of internally illuminated signs. And there's a reference to that. There are instances where they typically prohibit them, but there are some times that they think they should be allowed under special permit. So in section 8B, comma, with the exception of internally illuminated signs. The rest of this, going down, exempt signs. The only thing he wanted to add that the exempt signs is after flags, works of art that do not include a commercial message. They actually approved the Abbey Park mural that we were commenting that it works. It adds a lot of character, but he said that he does want to have a review of that. So signs shall be allowed by right, but under works of art that do not include a commercial message, comma, subject to review by the sign review committee.
So why don't you just take it out, because this is under exempt signs. So works of art are no longer considered exempt.
So that would be sort of saying they still have the right to do it, but it's subject to the review of the sign review committee. So they by right you can do a work of art that do not include a commercial message,
This
They don't want to prohibit it.
this is in the prohibited category, right? Isn't that
No,
where?
this is exempt.
Okay, so
Exempt.
you're in what category? You're you're not in
8A.
B. You're in.
This is
A.
8A.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought you were in B.
Yeah, sorry. That was,
So they shall be allowed by right without the necessity of a sign permit. But now you're saying,
they don't need a sign permit. Well, except if they need review. Yeah, maybe we should ask town council
so
on
that's
that.
like
How
we're
that-
sending mixed messages in.
Well, we want to be able to allow it, so maybe we put it in. We don't, he didn't want to prohibit it, is what he's saying.
Yeah, but it's not exempt.
Let's see if there's. You know, why don't we put a pin in that and I'll ask how, so maybe just leave it works of art are exempt. And then we can ask town council on how we might, if there's a.
I'm not saying that works of art should be exempt. You know, there are some works of art that should be exempt, probably, but I mean, should not.
So
be
maybe we
exempt.
should just take that line out completely? So that they would have to go through.
They
the
would have
process.
to go through it, right?
I guess that would make sense.
Because it's not exempt.
How does everybody else feel about that? Just strike that line.
I think you should, because when you're dealing with something as big as a mural, I think it should get some kind of review.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of a
Yeah.
work of art that someone would do in the public, like a sidewalk Sam would do a mural on a sidewalk, but I can't think of a work of art that would go anywhere other than a mural. That would be on a building other than a mural. So
All right.
if you strike it, I have no problem with it.
Because we're not prohibiting it and we're not exempting it. It would go through. So I think that would satisfy what he was looking for. So we'll strike number 6
Mhm.
completely. Okay. And that'll resolve that. And then under B, prohibited signs, this is where he asked that we write under 16, internally illuminated signs, comma, except through special permit process only. And it does refer to that in the illuminated section as well. So it would be prohibited, internally illuminated signs, comma, except through special permit process only.
Yeah, so why is that? I guess the same rationale. Why is this even needed here? Because if it's a prohibited,
We could strike that because it does, because I was looking,
do we have another?
when we get to illuminated signs,
Like this bylaw is
It's-
24 pages long.
yeah, but it's making it more clear,
It's-
Maggie.
yeah.
It's going to be, I think it would be consistent. Let's just leave it in for now. And then, because it references when
Meredith,
we get a little further.
in what you-
prohibited. Yeah.
sorry, Meredith,
Yeah.
may I jump in here? In what you said earlier, before we started going through this document, you said that there were times when internally illuminated signs they found to be appropriate. So sounds like this should be struck from prohibited.
Okay. We could, and then when we get down to illuminated, maybe we figure out a different way to word
Right.
permitted and prohibited. Okay. All right, let's strike this and not be confused. Let's be as least confusing as possible. I do agree, Meg.
And then what about audible signs? Are we allowing those now?
I thought we added, did we add?
Didn't make it here in the edit. Just wondering. And that's just me driving that. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
I think we discussed that.
Yeah.
So we can put in 16 instead of this internally illuminated signs. Could we add audible signs? That's a good, we can just
Yeah,
put it in
just
there.
audible signs.
Meredith, did John comment at all about prohibiting open face channel letters?
Yeah, he thought we shouldn't, that's when I was going to get over there. He thought we should not allow open face channel letters. And actually, so when we get into this section, illumination, we might just scrap this whole thing too. I don't know, but because it also, yeah, because he doesn't think we should allow that, the LED, the fluorescent LED, the things that we said are in the prohibited section.
Okay, so
We
that's
should do
scrolling
special
down, I
things.
think, to the next
Yeah,
page.
we'll get down. Yeah, so prohibited signs, measurement of sign area and height.
So Meredith, did you ask him about these sizes? Because we had talked about whether anyone had really looked at these sizes compared to existing signs. Like, will all of the existing signs now be out of compliance for size? Did you ask him about that?
Yeah, you know what? The only thing he commented on, he thought the gas station sign was too small. He gave new dimensions for that.
Okay.
And he also gave for setback. He said keeping the 15 feet, but adding language unless otherwise determined in site plan review, which gives discretion to the sign review committee when they are looking at the site location. But otherwise, he thought the measurements of the other signs seemed appropriate.
Okay, thanks.
So under, there's one word here that I'm questioning, where, so it's the measurement of the sign, and it reads, generally, sign area shall be computed as the area within the smallest single rectangle or square enclosing the extreme limits of the sign face. Why does it say smallest? Why wouldn't it say largest? We're trying to contain the size of the sign. I'm trying to follow smallest rather than largest. We want to make sure that we don't have a sign any bigger, right? So wouldn't it be the largest rectangle or square enclosing the extreme limits?
If you have a building and you have windows and you have an area like below the window, or above the doorway, let's just say, I think that's what it's indicating, that it would be like not on the side of a window. It would be more of a narrow.
Well,
Facing,
I still
yeah.
think no matter where it is, you'd want to define the sign area as being computed as the largest single rectangle or square enclosing the extreme limits of the sign face. So whatever the limits of the sign face is what we're talking. I'm just not even sure. Maybe smallest doesn't even need to be there. Sign area shall be computed as the area within the single rectangle or square enclosing the extreme limits. Maybe you don't even need smallest or largest,
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's,
The single
again,
rectangle.
if here I am, a regular person reading this, it is very confusing.
That is a bit confusing. I mean, I've had plenty of clients that if
Yeah.
they looked at Jim's, that's Purdue, isn't it, your daughter's school?
Yep.
They'd look at the Purdue logo and they would try to define it as, the tightest of the parameters.
Yeah, it's just the black. It's
Yeah.
not the gold.
Right.
So it would be a way to cheat a bigger
Arguments like
sign.
that. Yeah.
Maybe it's,
Yeah.
you know what, what it maybe is referring to is if you have a sign, but you have, say you have inset like an inset
Mhm.
panel,
Mhm.
it would go within that inset panel. Cheryl, what is your interpretation?
I think it's difficult also. This is where like a graphic is helpful. And I don't know if the sign guidelines have one and if this is consistent with what they've been doing, but I do think we should pin this and come back to it.
Yeah.
We should ask John and we should ask the building commissioner.
There'll be too much debate
Yeah,
in the process, the way it's written right now. We need
Right.
something that's really definitive.
right.
Yeah, because if you say, like on my self-storage facility, I've got a 4x8 sign, then it's held up by two 4x4 posts, so it's actually 8 plus another 8 inches. So it would easily be a way to cheat your sign and make it a lot bigger following this. If you take out the word smallest, I think to Sean's point, I think it gets rid of that. And it's just the limit of the sign.
I'll ask John, and we'll ask the building commissioner too to weigh in. Okay. And then I couldn't remember, I caught this little typo under measurements of sign height. Under number 2, building signs, the height of a wall shall be determined. Did we add that "be" in before?
It's a good catch.
And then under setback, this John suggested shall be set back at least 15 feet unless otherwise determined in site plan review, comma, from the nearest property line. So just adding unless otherwise determined in site plan review. So that gives flexibility because in some cases there are signs that.
So Meredith, one thing I wonder if there will be confusion because the planning board does site plan review under site plan approval.
So we should
So-
plan review by.
So by the sign committee or just say determine in, I'm just wondering about the word site plan,
Unless
that's all.
otherwise determined by the site plan review committee.
No, because this is talking about their review, right? Not to our review, not our separate review process, this edit?
Right. So determined in site plan review by the sign committee. Sign
Well,
review
I
committee.
guess you could just say,
Well, do they have their own site plan review? Is that what this is referring to?
Well, they do look at the context of the site where
Yeah.
the sign's going.
So this isn't referring to our
Context.
site plan review, it's referring to the.
Right. It's to theirs.
Yeah.
and I just don't want to be confusing for someone who's under site plan review. So I think it would be, you could just say sign committee, site plan review, and that way it's clear whose review it is.
All right. Did you get that, Nick? Does that make sense?
Wait, so before we move on, so this is 15 feet from the nearest property line. So if I have a property line that abuts the public way, so I have to set it back 15 feet. Is that what this is saying?
Unless, like, he used the example, like, if sending it back 15 feet, you wouldn't be able to see it when you're, if it's a directional sign. Sometimes they need to be closer. Like Elliott Physical Therapy is closer because otherwise it's closer to the property line. But if it was back down the drive, you wouldn't see that. There would be no seeing their sign. So it gives discretion that when it's appropriate, you can do less than 15 feet.
Okay, so it's not the nearest property line. It doesn't, does that refer to a neighbor, the neighbor's property line, or the street property line?
I think it's either or. The way I take it is it's either or. Like if it's on a corner, you have to be 15 feet from either the front
Whatever
or
the
the
nearest
side
is.
or both.
Yeah, it seems like both, because it reads whether or not said line abuts a public or private street or way. So
So I think about all the signs up in my neck of the woods, my sign, Newcomb Farm sign, Eagle Farm, Bunny Thomas sign. We're all within 15
Right.
feet. So we have our signs, and now we have to go through this review process, which we never had to go through before. Now we have to do this. They can tell us now it has to go back 15 feet.
You don't have to, if you have an existing sign, you don't
They
have
don't
to
have to
remove your sign.
do this.
You don't have to change your sign.
Yeah.
And there's appropriate times when it, because of the visibility and you can't set it back, that physically you can't do it. So that's why they wanted to make sure it wasn't always the standard. And then, so right away, moving down, criteria. I think he agreed in C, the second to last line or third to last line, we changed select board to DPW.
Right.
Did we make that change? Was that already track changed? And he agreed with that.
We put building
Yeah, we have
commissioner
building
in.
commissioner in here.
Or we put building commissioner?
But I remember we're talking about the DPW. And I think it should be the DPW.
That's what, yeah, I thought
Yeah.
we said building commissioner, then we changed it to DPW and he agreed with that, if we did.
And this is also to Sean's point, and it mentions the insurance.
Yeah, so we want to find out about that. Okay, insurance. So then this is, if we go down to the illumination, this is where Tim had the permitted externally illuminated signs. And then this is where he said, and this is interesting just for discussion, but stationary light shielded and directed downward or upward, or maybe in quote, or in parentheses, or upward if ground mounted solely at the sign. So it was interesting. I was listening to another town, the Wellesley Planning Board reviews their signs, and they really try not to do upward lighting now because of dark sky compliance. They, even for ground mounted, they try to do downward facing signs. So
Makes sense.
I don't, but John said there are times that it just makes sense for there to be in uplit signs. And I'm trying to think of any uplit signs that we have that I can think of in Milton. They seem to have.
So to me, that if we're trying to if we're getting away from upward signs, shouldn't we
Upward lights.
only allow them through a permit? So if we say we don't allow them, except if the special permit granting authority allows it.
He just felt there's times that it makes sense to do an upward lit instead of a gooseneck lighting, like a soft uplighting.
I'm with you. I can't think of one, but I wouldn't want to close the door on it.
Yeah, and he seemed to feel that that would be good. So maybe we just.
I've seen signs that are ground mounted, directed solely at the sign, that are angled to hit just the sign.
Yeah.
And the lamp can be controlled, as opposed to like direct to uplight. So is that what he's talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
it can be a really attractive way to light a sign.
Yeah, you think
Yeah.
people light their houses for
And their
Halloween
trees,
with
I mean,
uplight and
people
trees?
uplight
Yeah.
their trees, so.
And flagpoles.
Okay. So So light shield and directed downward or upward if ground mounted at the sign. Okay.
Is this where, though, we need to add the internally illuminated sign by special permit? Or whatever that language was that he would
Yeah, there's a lot.
had
You'll
suggested
see
putting
under-
previously?
Yeah, number 2 actually lists it as prohibited.
Right, but he had said that in some circumstances that was something that they found acceptable, right?
Yes, and so I think that's confusing to say it's prohibited because the other signs. So I think you're right about that, Cheryl. We should add.
We should move it up to permitted, but then there are limits to what's permitted with that, right?
Yeah, so we could make that C.
I mean, that's why it's
Internally
the
illuminated.
prohibited is just confusing because
Right.
it's saying it's prohibited except if you get a special permit.
Yeah,
So then it's
Yes.
permitted.
Right.
yeah, I agree
Right,
with
so-
you, Maggie. I think it should just be prohibited if it's in this section.
Permitted, yeah. So the nenext one says a reverse lit sign. Signs may be reverse lit, illuminated by white light only. He also said it could be, because now it could be reverse lit or halo signs. So they're interchangeable somewhat, or are they different, Cheryl? Do you think?
Reverse lit or halo signs?
Halo signs, dash, yeah. So we just want to add or halo signs. Reverse lit or halo signs. Signs may be reverse illuminated by white light only. And then, so we would then put C, internally illuminated signs. And then it would be internally illuminated signs dash illuminated signs shall be permitted only permitted by the issuance of a special permit. Internal signs. We could just say
Well, aren't all these signs special permitted?
not for the permitted, the permitted
The
signs.
permanent signs are different than a special permit sign.
Yeah. Internal signs.
I don't know. I think it's fine like that.
Does that,
Prohibited and then
you think prohibited or just say,
prohibited. Just the
or
way
just
it's written
taking out
here.
the word prohibited and just put internally illuminated signs?
Well, we're saying they're prohibited except you can get a special permit, possibly. You know.
But we took it out of the prohibited section.
Oh, right. All right.
So this would now be permitted. Internally illuminated signs
By special
may be
permit only.
permitted, may be permitted.
So the question is, do we or the sign review committee really want signs prohibited? And if they do, then it shouldn't be by special permit. I think its terminology is confusing because you could say permitted and then permitted by special permit
That's
instead of prohibited.
So they wanted them, they did want them to not be allowed. So they did want them to be prohibited
Okay,
with the exception.
And why don't we just say
Special
prohibited?
permit.
right. So then we get rid of the except by, as may be by
Yeah.
special.
Then you have
So-
you never have an option to get that sign ever.
Because part of the problem is if I applied for a sign and it was on the prohibited list and I was denied a special permit, but then someone else got that special permit for the,
Yeah.
then I get
Because
upset
this-
about stuff like that.
I know, but circumstances could be different,
You know,
Maggie. Things could be different.
that's why I don't.
Not everything's equal.
I'm kind of a black and white kind of person. And when I
Oh.
read something, I want to know what I'm able to do and what I'm not able to do.
No gray area, huh?
And then there can be gray area, but then I'm choosing. So when I apply for, I want to know I can do X, Y, and Z, but if I want to go beyond X, Y, and Z, then I have to go through a process to get an exemption from it.
And that's
Okay.
exactly what this tells
So
me.
this would,
Yeah.
As
this
written
would
originally,
read-
that's
Yeah.
exactly what this
this would
says to me.
read to prohibited, and then it would be, we would take out that following sentence to not be confusing and just say A, internally illuminated signs and open face channel letters. And then we would keep in C.
Meredith, can we, I do not follow what you're suggesting right now. So under prohibited, you all wanted to say the following types of illumination shall be prohibited, and then strike where, the way it was drafted, where it says except
Yes.
by special permit.
Yep. Let's say,
So that completely changes what
yeah.
the intent of this section. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, so that's where we moved internally illuminated signs to a kind of a separate category where they're permitted by special permit only. Are there any other signs that are like that by special permit only?
Well, the way this is drafted, it says that an internally illuminated open face and signs fabricated with letters. Right now, it says all of those are allowed by
Yeah.
special permit.
And that's what we didn't want for C to be permitted, that you could go get a special permit to have those type of signs.
So the thing here, Nick, is it sounds as if the chair of the sign review committee advised that there are times when internally illuminated signs are appropriate, so they would pull that out of prohibited, but they would.
But right now, it's saying they are allowed,
Right, but.
which is what you're saying he wants to communicate. That's what I'm missing.
Right. So what we really would need is a third category. So this category, you would have permitted, like we have, number one. Number two, you would have permitted by special permit only. And then number three, you would have prohibited. And you would take out internally illuminated signs from prohibited, but you would also strike the words except as may be permitted by the issuance of a special permit. So then truly you have something that's prohibited.
That was his goal, to do that.
So he wants to keep prohibited what is listed as B and what is listed as C?
Yes.
Okay.
But not allowing them by special permit. So striking that option for a special permit. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So the way that, Cheryl, the way that you described it, I think is the best way to convey this.
Yeah.
3 categories, just as you described.
Yep, I think.
I have to fix the numbering, but Cheryl, could you say again
Yeah.
the
So
second
so
group
this would
that
be
would
permitted by special permit. That's. And then the only one that we had in that was the internally illuminated signs for now.
Yes, because that was the one exception he had to that. And that makes it less confusing with the prohibited language.
So the way that's written with the prohibited language, LED price signs or any sign
Are prohibited.
are prohibited in Mass. So what about the gas stations in East Milton Square? What if those,
So they would not have to change. One's already been.
and if they're change ownership or change name, they
So
lose
if
their
build-
price
if
signs?
they build a new sign, they would have to do and I've seen what other towns do. They don't allow those bright neon signs. They have what is the internally illuminated, which he referred to, that he said sometimes like on a gas station, you need, so you would be able to have the lit numbers. So
Okay.
I'll just use like
Yeah.
at Derby Street in Hingham, like there's a gas station right outside Derby Street. They don't have, they have, it's lit internally with just the letters and numbers that are lit. So you can see them at night.
Okay.
It gives that visibility. But it is, and they also had like an arched light over it. So,
So, what time are these lights getting shut off?
at the close of business.
Close of business. And each business is a different hour.
Right. Which reminds me, we have to find a way to put in dimmer switches. I don't like
Yeah, where
all
that goes.
illuminated signs. We should put a note in. All right, so here the time he has, unless a business establishment is open to the public, the sign shall be illuminated between the hours of, no, it shall not, shall not
The
be
sign
illuminated.
shall be illuminated. Yeah, so they shut off at 11 and open at 6 a.m. I have no problem with that. I think that's fine.
And that is unless the business is open to the public. So this does also read that if a business is open to the public after 11, the sign could be illuminated.
Right.
We don't probably have any that are open past 11.
Beth Israel.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
Yep. That's,
And their sign is on through the night, right? It must be.
It's got to
I
be. It's a
believe it
hospital,
is.
but
Yeah.
I mean, if my business were open, I would want my sign to be able to be on.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I once again, I have no problem with the reading of that.
Yep. Me too.
so where should we put the line? All lit signs should have dimming capabilities to adjust after installation.
Probably in intensity. The next category, number 4.
Maybe add a D.
Yeah.
Read his please. One more time.
All lit signs should have, we should say, shall have dimming capabilities to adjust after installation.
I think you'd create, rather than intensity, you might create another,
Number 5.
call it controls, you know? That's probably a better thing to do than try to fit it into intensity.
I like that.
Lighting
Yeah,
controls.
too.
Lighting controls.
Yeah.
Number 5, lighting controls. And we'll say all illuminated signs should have dimming capabilities to adjust after installation.
And what purpose does that serve?
Because if it comes on and it's too bright, they're looking at the number of lumens, or if it seems too intense, that somebody would have the capability to adjust it.
So do they have to, when they apply for a sign for it to be lit, they have to provide the number of candles or lumens? So do we have a max amount of number of lumens it should be, or candle?
We don't, but I know they mentioned one of their, a recent sign review.
Went
They
to
said will be
30.
no more than 40.
It was no more than 30. They proposed 40, and the
they said no more
ZBA
than- said
was
no more than 30.
reduced it to 30. So I'm wondering, and I'm not overly familiar, what 30, what 20, 30, 40, the differences?
It says the intensity of such light shall be deemed acceptable if it does not exceed a factor of 3 above the ambient light intensity at any point on the ground when measured with an incident light meter and the following procedure. The intensity of the light in foot candles with a sign turned off, the same measurement is replaced. The ratio measurement in A do that B shall not exceed 3.
Nick,
So-
I think at number 4, you could have the word dimming and a dash, and the dimming would be bold to match the formatting up above. And then you could say all, well, so you would keep what you had, just put it back, right? Okay.
Under 5.
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
All exterior illumination shall have dimming capabilities. And you need that word shall.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so that I think includes everything that he wanted. The only other thing that he thought, and I think we talked about, is under 12 in business. Sorry, did you finish with that, Nick? I didn't mean to rush.
Yes, I was coughing. Sorry, I forgot to mute myself in time.
Oh no, that's is it all set?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Under 12 business districts, under B, the third bullet, he just thought this is confusing to say that some streets should have different, that we would allow different size signs. Because this is sort of what happened with when people thought the really large billboard was going to go up, over the highway. He said he would just take this out, this bullet. Because how do you start, when you start picking different size signs, it's confusing for the building commissioner to not be consistent.
Yeah, I agree.
And if you think about Granite Ave, those have some small signs on it. So we could just take this out, this bullet completely. That was where Tim had Route 2 on there. I think he was looking at another town. Signs painted on windows, G. So he had such signage shall not require a permit under this bylaw. He said it shall require a permit under this bylaw. Or be included in the calculation of the total permitted area for the lot. So meaning that signs painted on windows are not exempt.
And then do you need the last part saying provision that provided that no lettering or symbol is greater than 6 inches in height? Should we strike that? If it has to be permitted, do you have to
Yeah, we could just
specify the
take that
6
out.
inches? Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be just 6 inches.
I think what you say is such signage is subject to the requirements of this section. And then strike the rest of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just keep it. Such signage shall be subject to the requirements of this section. Period.
Of this section or of this bylaw? The section is business districts.
Mm-hmm.
If 12 is considered a section.
That's my understanding, but we should confirm that. So Nick, this could say such signage shall be subject. Where you started the sentence.
To the requirements of this
Yeah.
bylaw.
So if you're in a residential district, you can have painted signs on windows?
Well, I mean, you could think about the dental office on the corner of Reedsdale and Randolph. I don't know if they have painted signs in the windows, but that's a residential district.
Right. So this is only under business districts.
I see.
Yeah, I think of painted windows as just being more business districts.
So if you're in a residential district, you can have painted windows
Without a permit.
without, yeah.
I wonder then if this just gets stricken altogether. Is it?
Signs painted on windows, yes.
Yeah, because it's prohibited.
Right. Yeah.
All right, let's just strike this. If that's too confusing.
I mean, is it on our prohibited list? Painted windows?
I don't remember that. I think he wanted it regulated, but I don't remember it being prohibited.
Unless we want to keep it as it originally was and say shall not require a permit as long as it's less than 6 inches. But
if you look here, this is section 12 business districts, and it does have, this is what sets out the requirements in the business district. So I don't think we should strike it all together.
How about if we leave it, right?
But I think you said, John said that it should count towards the total sign area. I think that's what we should put in there.
Or to simplify it even more, leave it G, signs painted on windows in a business district. In a business district, script describing a product or theme and not including the name of the business, such signage shall require a permit under this bylaw, period. And just leave it at that. And get rid of the rest.
But I do think the question is whether it is included in the total sign area that's allowed. And what this was saying basically was that it wasn't being included in that sign area. Is it better to be explicit about that? I think that's what John was suggesting, that it would be explicit, that it was included in the total sign area.
Yeah, then if that being his point, such signage shall require a permit under this bylaw and be included in the calculation of the total permitted sign area.
That would do it, I think.
period. And
Yeah.
end with lot. So we're not saying anything about that. No lettering being
Right.
greater than 6 inches. Yeah. Okay.
So I understand script describing a product, like, painted on sign saying milk $4.99. But what's a theme? Are we saying that a business can't have like snowflakes or Christmas painted on it? A theme?
Holiday signs are exempt. It's a holiday, decorate the holiday.
So snowflakes would be holiday. I'm just trying to think. What do the
holiday lighting, holiday?
what do the stores have?
Well, I can think of
That
some
is-
places where they have graphic of fruits and vegetables, for example. That's a graphic, but in terms of words, they might have lottery tickets, or they might have, whatever other products are sold there. And this is, I think, the reason you want to make it as part of the total sign area is to what I think John said before, that having people come in and basically fill the window space with signage, which is a problem in many business districts.
Or like signs with like Powerball, with the Powerball.
Right, things, all sorts of stuff like that.
So those little LEDs, that would prohibit those. And that used to be enforced in Milton and not lately.
Well, these are signs painted on windows.
Yeah,
I'm
so this
thinking
is
more of
painted,
like
yeah.
And I don't want to misquote here, but I could
Yeah.
have sworn Maggie's Barbershop does a snow theme.
Yes,
It's
yeah.
not necessarily Christmas. It's winter, and she just does that on her windows. Covers the windows almost, and I think it looks really nice. I mean, are we
Right, yeah.
not allowing that with this?
Because that's a
clause?
theme.
That's-
You know, it's painted on a window. It's bigger than 6 inches, and it's
but
it's a
holiday-
theme.
But let's look at these.
But it says script. Script is are words.
Okay.
Script, describing a product or script.
So such signage shall not require a permit. But now we're saying that signage is required.
Shall require a permit under this bylaw or be included.
So if there's
in
no
the-
word, she's in the
and-
clear to do that. That's good. I'm just trying to clarify this. I
Yeah.
think
And be included in the calculation of the total permitted sign area.
Yeah, I mean, this is
A lot.
when Cheryl calls out script means it's lettering.
Letters,
It's
okay.
it's
Good.
not
Okay.
it's not snowflakes.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. All right. I'm okay with it.
That's how I read it.
Yeah. Good.
You know, script would be something that is a narrative.
Yeah. Good.
Or script describing a theme.
Yeah. I overlooked the word script, so I think
Yeah.
that's fine. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you think about some storefronts like that though, and they'll be happy often whatever the holiday is, you know, happy Hanukkah, happy 4th of July, Merry Christmas, you know, whatever it might be. There's plenty of businesses that like
Yeah.
to be able to express some type of a greeting like that. And I guess this isn't really allowing that, is it?
Yeah, at that point, it's script.
It's probably a question for John.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's have them take a look at this. Yeah. All right, I'll ask him to look
Sarah,
at
you're muted.
Sorry, total sign area is to be capitalized. Thank you.
So I'll ask John about that. And then for the sidewalk signs, he thought these sounded good, but we should run it through, run it by the DPW and the building commissioner to take a look at,
And the insurance clause at the end.
and the insurance clause. And I have a message, so yeah, that we'll ask Nick about that. And then just on the last page, bed and breakfast, he thought it was a good idea just to leave that in there because if the town decided to allow it, we wouldn't have to take this back to town meeting. So leave that in. And then gasoline service stations, he thought it should not exceed 12. He thought that should be 20 feet in area. He said that's more of typically what would be allowed.
And maybe
Or
just do service stations. I don't know. They're diesel service stations.
Yeah. Just service stations?
Automotive service
Service
stations.
stations. Yeah.
Automotive instead of gasoline.
Because maybe at some point it could be electric.
These service stations.
Automotive service stations?
Yeah, Jim, what did you say?
Eventually, they're going to be EV service stations.
Yeah. Yeah. Electric.
Hybrid?
But
Hybrid.
would this also allow then the stations that are the places that do automotive repair to have the size sign?
That's a good thing.
Yeah, I think so.
Like I'm thinking down at the intersection of Blue Hills Parkway and Brook Road and down at Central and Elliott.
Yeah, I think it would. Because he said typical is 4x5 sign would be allowed there.
So Cheryl, you saying it shouldn't be allowed down there?
I'm just wanting to point it out to think about, like, do we want that to be the same?
I think
Because
that
by
makes
changing
sense.
gasoline to automotive, I think it opens it up. well, if that's okay with everyone. I just want to point it out.
That's actually a good point. Maybe we don't want that.
I'm trying to think of that's S&E that you're talking about. I'm trying to think about the sign they have there now, right?
Isn't it kind of big?
It might already be.
Yeah.
4x5.
Well, I don't know. I don't think it's.
20 square feet is not a big sign, right? I mean, 12 is tiny.
It depends again, like if you're thinking about like Central and Elliott, where it's a kind of a smaller intersection, smaller scale versus the Parkway and Brook, where the vehicles are going by. But
Maybe we
I
should
mean,
leave
you
it
could
gas
call out a fuel service station
fuel.
if you didn't want to
Yeah, fuel. I like that.
capture everything else, because it was intended really to be the gas stations.
Yeah, so a fuel service station, does that sound good to keep that? Okay. And that was the last thing that he had on that for. So subject to review of those items, does the board feel comfortable distributing this to the warrant committee or initial? I mean, they'll probably have their own comments too.
Well, this one gets submitted to the select board, right?
And the select board.
For
It goes-
inclusion in the warrant,
Yes.
because the warrant closes on Thursday, correct?
That's why we moved up our meeting to this week, so.
So I think what we would want to do is have a vote to submit it to the select board for inclusion in the warrant, and then it would get submitted to the warrant committee via the typical process.
So could I have a motion to send it to the select board and the warrant committee for review?
Sure,
But you
The
want-
select board, sorry, Cheryl, why don't you make that motion and?
Well, I just wanted to
Or-
be clear, we want to submit it for the warrant, not just for review. So I'll make a motion to submit the sign bylaw as amended tonight, and perhaps further amended in the coming meetings to the select board for inclusion in the October 27th town meeting.
I'll second that.
We'll do a roll call since Cheryl's on. Sean,
Yes.
Maggie,
Yes.
Jim,
yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
and myself, yes. Okay. Thank you, and we'll follow up with those other questions too. Now, traffic mitigation. Cheryl, do you want to walk us through this and the updates that you made?
Sure. Do you want to have Nick also share screen on that?
That would be great.
Okay, thank you, Nick. So primarily, this was intended to capture projects in the business districts. As I think we spoke about, where 440 Granite Avenue was not subject to the requirements of this bylaw, which was adopted in 2018 or 2019, I believe. The idea behind this bylaw was for smaller projects or projects that wouldn't trigger larger traffic studies, that a contribution into a fund pooled together with other projects would provide funds that would go towards mitigation in the area in which those projects were permitted, so that it might be improvements to the public way, such as infrastructure for sidewalks or bike lanes, or signalization improvements, or traffic studies, or things of that nature. So there have been contributions to the fund by Wolcott Woods and by 440 Granite Ave. My understanding is, in a conversation with Nick Milano, is that that those funds haven't been put to use yet. So there is one amendment in here that relates to that, that I can go over with you when we get there. But the primary reason I brought this up was this had been submitted and gone to town meeting in 2019, I believe, and it was sent back for further study, and it didn't get picked back up. And so I went back and looked at what was proposed then, and also some comments that we had received at that time from Alex Whiteside, and there's a couple of those incorporated here too. So here in the beginning, it just summarizes the actual changes so to the existing bylaw. So if you can just scroll down, I have it in red line format so you can see what these changes are. So here, this is a residence district would pick up some of those businesses like in East Milton where they actually exist in a residential district, like the Fruit Center, for example. So that picks up, that's why the residence district and then the business district. And this previously only applied for when special permits are required, but because the business district is site plan approval, needed to add site plan approval is required. Changing here from then that principal use being actually a structure, which is more appropriate language. And then you'll see throughout where the special permit granting authority has to also now be, or the site plan approval granting authority, because the special permit granting authority could be the planning board or the ZBA, but in this case, the site plan approval granting authority is the planning board. So then the next change is the word inhabitants to residents. That was one of Alex Whiteside's flags. The next one was another one of his flags, which is then the level of service. The way he read this was that there are already intersections that are below C and D. We have E and F. So in any case, then this would eliminate some projects just by that last clause in this sentence. And so at that time, he had suggested eliminating that. So I thought that was a good point and picked it up here. The next parts are just adding, again, site plan approval and the special permitting, or the site plan approval granting authority for the rest of this page. And some typos in that section 5, the traffic mitigation measures. And then, again, those are just picking up the authority. Again, here, there's one more that's not that I think I'm looking for. Hold on. Can you stop there for 1 second? Scroll back up 1 sec there. Okay, I'm sorry, you can keep going. No, there's one that we missed. So look, I'm sorry. Let me just find it.
Right at the bottom of the page, Cheryl. Is that it?
That was there, but there was one too. Also, let's just scroll back up to the other page. Sorry. Okay, right there under B. Nick pointed out that we hadn't actually done this, and the two permits that were granted, the 440 Grand Ave and the Wolcott Woods, that have paid into the fund. We didn't include conditions in the permit about how the funds would be utilized. And he thought it preferable to let it be determined later. And it makes sense when you think about what I had mentioned about how these funds could be pooled together from different projects. And some of it might be determined after the project's actually built and impacts are seen. So, so that's why those that was struck there at the end of paragraph B. Okay, that should be everything.
That's great. So you did say Nick has had a chance to sort of look through this and work through this?
Yes,
with
and
you,
he
which
did
is-
say, again, he would want this to be reviewed by town council, of course,
Yeah.
but he did review it.
I think this looks great. Any questions or comments? Obviously, we'll have a public hearing on this as well.
I guess my question is really the dollar amount, you know.
Yeah, I didn't change that part of it. Let's see, which section is that?
Yeah.
Maggie, oh, right there, okay.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure. Is that legal to do like a dollar amount? And should
Well-
we be limiting ourselves to a certain dollar amount? I mean, I know this is only shall have the discretion. So I had a problem really with the whole section until I really focused. It said, it shall have the discretion to strongly encourage. So that doesn't mean require. So, you know, if I was an applicant and I was being strongly encouraged, what would happen if the applicant said, no, thank you?
But what are you talking about? Because it says it may require the applicant to make this contribution. If you read A,
Above A, like where it says the SBGA or the site plan approval granting authority as applicable shall have the discretion to strongly encourage at least one or more transportation demand management
oh, that
programs.
you're talking about different, not the payments. Remember, the things that are in black and white here are already on the books. They've been on the books since 2018, and it was approved by the Attorney General. So the only thing that's being proposed to change is what's in red.
What book, Cheryl? Our bylaws? When you
This
say
is in our bylaws, yeah.
Yeah,
it's in our bylaws, all right.
yeah, it's just an update, but
It's an update to capture more projects.
yeah.
You know, 440 Granite Ave wasn't subject to this, but we asked for them to contribute to it as part of one of the conditions of their permit. The only one that was really truly subject to it that's paid in is Walcott Woods. But you may recall that the memory care facility is subject to it as well, and they will be paying into it I think the trigger is at their building permit stage, which they haven't, I don't think they're at yet, but
Yeah, so back to my point, it still says the discretion to strongly encourage.
but
We can't.
for the things up above, or the payments are mandatory.
Well, because
Can
it
you tell
says,
me what section you're in, Maggie, so I
Oh.
can pull it up on the screen?
right there,
Sorry.
right there, where it says section 275-20.5, establishment of TDM goals and requirements.
Thank you.
So it says the SPGA strongly encourage at least one or more of the transportation demand management to reduce peak hour volumes as listed below, and then it has the dollar amounts or staggered work hours. So
No, but then there's a totally separate section in terms is the payment. So this was mitigation payments is a totally separate section, not part of that section.
okay, so if these are just this section, if we just look at this section, this is just suggestions, right? We're just suggesting, and the applicant doesn't have to do any of this.
Well, so, it's part of the permit, so it can be made a condition, just like other conditions have been made for other special permits or site plan approvals.
Yeah, I mean, if
What's not at discretion is the payment, because it says required.
it
Next
says,
section.
does it say required, Cheryl, or when I read that section, it say may require the applicant to make a contribution?
I'm sorry, I'm just not seeing that on the screen right now.
Okay.
I'll pop it back. So you scroll down further, Nick.
Yeah, may require the applicant to make contribution.
Yes, you're right. It says may require.
But it gives us the opportunity to.
Yeah, it does. Sure. Yep.
I mean, it's not a lot of money if you're doing a small development.
Well, sometimes projects, people would want to have a traffic study or some other mitigation measure, and a small project doesn't warrant the expense of that mitigation measure. The idea behind this, when it was first proposed, was to pool small projects into having to do some contribution so that those funds would eventually add up to enough to look at the impacts of multiple projects. The people are concerned with, well, you do a traffic study for one project, but what about the next project and the next project? And so this was a means to address and provide some funding to address the cumulative effect of projects.
Yeah.
And
But
then,
that wouldn't be applied till after they're already done, right?
Yes, but you remember we talked about the signalization improvements at Canton Ave and Highland, for example, with the memory care facility? And those weren't going to be done before the project was completed.
yeah, and I'm not saying that I don't support this bylaw, I'm just questioning. And also, the other thing I'm questioning is in section B, the cost of land takings necessary to accomplish any of the purposes listed herein. Like, shall we be encouraging land takings?
Mm.
Well, I think the language you're talking about already exists.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it exists, but if we're going to be editing it, shouldn't we be improving it?
I'm trying to think of a case where we would want the money to go towards a land taking. But
Well, I just wouldn't want my land to be taken.
no.
Well, it would have to be approved by both the planning board and the select board in order to even contemplate that. It's just saying that the funds could be used for that. So, for example, I'm not sure if it would be considered a taking, but projects that my office has worked on in Boston where the sidewalks are narrow and the city's interested in a wider sidewalk, they require projects to widen the sidewalks into their own property. And then they have an easement with the city for use of that land for the sidewalk. So it's a way to address safety concerns about having proper bicycle and pedestrian as well as vehicle infrastructure when there's limited public right-of-way.
So then
Yeah,
to
that's
that
the opposite of a taking.
And to
right?
that point, if a project contributed to this fund, and then down the road, that money that they contributed was then applied to taking their land to extend.
I don't think so. Like when you go down further, it reads funds, potential use of funds. Funds may only be used if the expenditure directly relates to the impact created by the development to which it applies. Funds may not be used to pay for existing deficiencies unless the deficiencies are increased by the new development. And there's some guidelines here. The SPGA must establish a clear and proximate link between the impact of a development on the transportation network and how the mitigation funding will be used to remedy that impact. So establish a clear and well-defined process to monitor progress and compliance. So it seems like there's there's a process here to how the funds would be used.
I think you have to scroll down to see that, Nick.
Yeah, it's
What are you saying?
There we go. State law requires that these funds would have to be spent in the area where the impact of the project is.
I hear your concern, Maggie, and I think when this was written, it probably recognized it also, and there's some parameters here that restrict how the funds can be used.
And I agree with the overall intent of it. I'm not saying, it's just
Yeah.
when I see terms like that, it makes me a little nervous.
But I would say overall, this is definitely an improvement on what we currently have.
Well, it captures, I think, really what was intended initially, because the revision came out pretty quickly after the bylaw was passed. As seeing as having missed that. I honestly didn't, other than the point made by Nick Milano and the email from Alex Whiteside. I did not review the entire article for other amendments. I was trying to limit it pretty much to what's done back then with those couple of exceptions.
Anything else? Anyone else?
No, I'm good with it.
All right, I would entertain a motion that we send this to the select board to include in the warrant, the updates, to include in the warrant and for review by town council and the warrant committee.
I'll make a motion that we sent the traffic impact mitigation article to the warrant committee and town council for review.
And the select board.
I'm sorry, and select board
For inclusion, warrant.
for inclusion in the warrant. Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second,
All in favor? Jim?
Yes.
Maggie?
yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Great, so that concludes our business for this evening. And unless the warrant committee needs for us to come and, present anything to them sooner than we need to, September 11th, but I'm sure they're gonna have to, get their committee together and do some review of this, but we'll circulate these and I think at this time, Nick, we should probably think about dates for public hearings in September. But I can connect with you and Nick on how soon we want to, because it takes a couple weeks to get those posted. So just thinking if we could have those in September. Or have a public hearing at some point in September.
Should the public hearing be prior to the warrant committee discussion on it?
Meeting with them, it would be nice, depending on how the warrant committee, they're not sure exactly how, they may be doing some subcommittees and those subcommittees would review articles rather than meeting with the whole committee. So once I know better on that, but we can look at the calendar this week and start thinking about, September 11th. If that's
Sorry, can I jump in here?
Yeah.
Given that the warrant goes to press, I think usually about a month before town meeting, if we had the public hearing at our first meeting in September, I think that would allow time for any edits that might come out of that process before the warrant goes to print.
And so backing that out, because Nick, you would have to
Publish it.
publish it twice.
Yes, it's just 2 consecutive weeks.
just 2 consecutive weeks. So we should be able to.
That we can handle as long as it's a date that works for you all, we can make that happen.
Okay.
Don't let that be an impediment. We will execute as quickly as you all pick a date.
All right. So why don't we then, if we're in agreement, the September 11th could be a public hearing for these 2 articles.
Makes sense.
All right. Let's shoot for that first, so we can just have that any changes as quickly as possible for the warrant committee.
Because we don't have any, what's scheduled on the 11th? Anything
Right
else?
now we don't.
Nothing?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a good time to
Yeah.
do this. So
Meredith,
yeah.
I assume since Citizen Speak is complete, there's a resident, I think it's Thomas Doherty, has his hand raised.
Oh, great. Okay.
Do you all entertain comment outside of Citizen Speak? Or
Yeah, if it's if it's
We do.
pertaining to these, yes. We will. Please. Welcome, Tom.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not a criticism, but I had my hand raised 20 minutes ago, and I listened from the beginning when it was stated that there could be public speak later on the topic, and I appreciate your letting me do so. My name is Thomas Doherty. I live on Adams Street in Milton. I want to raise with you the need to reassess the Massachusetts Department of Transportation Squantum Street, Adams Street right-of-way revision plan and its problems for Milton residents. As it relates to some of the very subjects you've been talking about tonight in terms of traffic, I asked to be provided with the text that you would be reviewing tonight. It wasn't provided. I can go through some of that, but I don't want to do that right now. My point is this. We need to have a public hearing, and we need to have a town meeting vote on whether the residents of Milton will agree or will want to revise or keep as now the Mass Department of Transportation Adams Street intersection plan. I raised that in the spring. I'm raising it now. That can happen sometime, I hope, before April. And it'll only take me a few more seconds to say, look, the Adams Street intersection plan is predominantly financed by the state, okay? And consequently, the state has its own mandated processes that have some implications that are problematical for our residents and for school buses and for citizens of Milton and others that are trying to go from Adams Street to the expressway, or the expressway to Adams Street, or on to Lower Mills from Adams Street, or Squantum Street to Lower Mills, and for the public schools and the private schools in the area. I won't go through any of that now. I'm concerned that you ought to look at what you've just looked at in terms of bylaws in situations in which there's also a state-imposed mandate, and how that can affect the way in which the town really has to decide whether or not they're going to accept some funds that have some consequences, 2 of which are, for example, and you mentioned frontage. There is frontage to be taken by the state's mandate under the intersection situation, which actually impedes on some of the historic frontage of some of the town members. And there's some, I believe, questionably problematical and risky aspects of the bike path, which begins and ends in a very short way, and therefore has some confusion elements to it. I'll stop there, but what I really want to have 2 things. Number 1, please publish before you're going to have a meeting like tonight, the material you're going to review, so that I could have incorporated in what I'm saying. But secondly, more importantly, because you do a wonderful job, look at what you did in the first part of this with all the work you did with respect to the prior matter and this one as well. I'm not criticizing that. But secondly, this mandate here is going to affect folks that I don't think many folks in Milton, whether they're near or not near that intersection, but go through it and have to deal with it, yet have contemplated. And there was a town meeting vote without a lot of detail. And I think, therefore, I'll stop here. There needs to be further consideration as to how that could be reconsidered. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We can consider putting that on the agenda too, to address and find out. I do know that a letter was drafted from the Historical Commission to Mass Historical with concerns on the design plan of that. DOT has made some changes and made revisions, but I think there's still a lot of concerns that the residents don't know about. The way it will be marked, the number of lights, the number of the issues, and the fact that the fire station is under construction and we don't know where their lights are going to go. So we should really have the fire station built before anything, I think, goes on in that intersection. But thank you. That's something that we can discuss. And hopefully, I'm not even sure if the select board members know what's happening with that plan, but at least maybe we can invite Marina to come and from engineering and maybe update our board. So
I think that'd be great. I do think that many residents follow the planning board meetings. And if Marina does present during the planning board meeting, we're going to create a platform for informing the residents, a better one than exists. What Tom Doherty just mentioned, I agree with him. I'm not familiar with it. And I'm sure there are many residents that aren't familiar with it. And if there's a choice here, everybody should be aware of the choice.
especially since there is land taking
Yeah.
of some properties who don't have a lot of land, and it's a very historic intersection. And, it does have some busier times, but during the daytime, it just flows very quietly. It's not a busy intersection for most.
Now, where can we get the information on that?
Marina had through the engineering. It was really Chase Berkeley that was working on it. So I don't know how much Marina has really intersected. Nick, I don't want to put you on the spot, but and we can put it on our agenda, but it's something we should Marina should maybe know about what's happening with that.
Is it possible? I'm not sure where someone would go to be able to see what Tom just described, but is it possible that the planning board might be able to get that information from Marina and put it on the planning board website for the planning board so people could find it?
Maybe a link, but it's really
Yeah.
DPW.
Yeah. I hear you.
Chase Berkeley was one. Yeah, it was really the DPW.
Or put it on the main page of the town's website so people can find it. And my concern is that it gets MassDOT goes down a path that then they say it's too far down the path to change and make changes. So like the roundabout up on Route 28, all of a sudden there were 1,800 residents who signed a petition not to have the roundabout. And then it went, it kept going forward. And now it's kind of
The difference is this is it's not a state-owned road. So Milton, the select board makes the decision. So the residents of Milton, we have the say. If we don't, and I think it is they're close to a 50% design. They've been revising it, but the residents can determine and make that determination. It's not a state road.
So it's primarily the neighborhood should be involved in that discussion first and foremost.
Yeah.
However, the way Mr. Doherty describes it, if you accept the funding from the state for the work,
Yeah.
you have to accept
The condition.
The conditions. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's
If they're going to pay for the light.
And who makes the determination if the town accepts the funding?
well, from the way I understood Mr. Doherty, I think he's suggesting town meeting should make that decision. I believe that's how I interpreted what he said.
Or yeah.
And if I
We'll
misinterpreted,
have to, we'll put it on the agenda and maybe Nick, if you could, find out what you might know, an update on that would be helpful for the September meeting. We can put on.
I will see if there's more information that is more recent that can be updated. The town already has a project information webpage, and MassDOT does as well.
Okay.
I think things like the presentation and the handout and flyer and that type of thing, we're pointing to their data or their information rather, or we've downloaded the PDF and uploaded it directly to the Town of Milton website. So
Okay.
I'll make sure that's up to date, but I'll share with Nick your interest and make sure it's on the agenda so that it's compliant with open meeting and not just a topic that someone complains in the future that we didn't let everyone know beyond Mr. Doherty. Others might be interested in speaking, as you all have noted.
And I believe DPW has a Facebook page, so maybe you should put it on that Facebook page too.
Because it has plastic bollards running from Pillen Road all the way up to Brook Road. That
Oh
are,
my God, how ugly.
it's very unattractive. It's designed. And a land taking. So the public should know. So thank you, Mr. Doherty. Okay. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Anything else from anybody before we? Oh, okay. Roll call. Cheryl,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Maggie,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and myself. Yes. Good night, all. Thank
Good
you,
night.
Nick, for joining us.